Back now, Tropical Storm Helene as it prepares to make landfall along Florida's Big Bend on Thursday. We're on your side with impacts that you can see here in Alabama and if it will impact those weekend plans.
And we talk about the flooding risks that could be possible from Helene and what you can do to stay safe.
And we're going to talk to an expert on when we can see those fall colors start to show up across our area and the conditions that can cause them to appear brighter or later than usual.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts.
The images in from just west of Detroit over in West Alabama. These from Preston Calvert, one of our First Alert weather watchers. And you can see some ominous low, kind of a tropical look, Tania, to some of those clouds out there.
Yeah, it might look a little more tropical later into this week.
Yeah, very interesting setup across our area this week. And I'm glad we have Weather Extra to talk about it because we have a cold front coming and a hurricane moving in from the south. And it's all going to come together here across Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, we want to know more about this. Wes, tell us about it.
Yeah, well, hey, let's start out. We mentioned the front that's moving in right now, Tania, and this is moving in across west Alabama. 79 degrees right now at Coleman. You're looking to the west, and we do have a storm that is approaching Coleman County at this time. We had a severe storm earlier that was into Marion County, but can you pick out the front here on the map? You can see it's actually right in this area, and notice how the overall line is slowly moving to the east direction, but you have these storms that develop, and they kind of run to the northeast along that line, and that's why we're ending up with some pockets of heavier rain there. And since it's such a slow moving system, a lot of this probably won't reach areas like Birmingham until after 8-9 o'clock tonight. Even Tuscaloosa, I still think we have a while. If you have a game to attend, looks like for now all this is staying to the north, but do stay alert. Jasper, around Curry, and especially around Smith Lake with that lightning threat happening right now. Make sure you have the First Alert weather app so you'll get those lightning alerts. East Alabama, right now we don't have any storms impacting us, but that will be changing over the next 48 hours. Again, a lot of this right now, areas to the north and west, you can see now pushing into, this is Clay County. So here's Smith Lake in here, Crane Hill. Nice little storm there to the north. It's not severe, but you're probably hearing some loud rumbles around Addison. It's going to move over into Coleman County. So AccuTrack, we have 80-degree temperature, still feeling hot out there. Most of the rain at the moment staying to the north and west, but that's going to slide on to the east here later on tonight. In fact, after midnight, you may hear some rumbles of thunder. All right, let's talk about Helene right now. Winds at 50 miles per hour. We'll have a 7 o'clock update. We'll probably get that for you here on Weather Extra, so stay tuned. But you can see it's now forecast to be a major Category 3, possibly Cat 4 there, moving into the Big Bend region of Florida. Significant impacts around Tallahassee. It's a fast-moving system. So look at this 1 o'clock Friday. I mean, this thing's already a depression north of Atlanta. So overnight Thursday, typically when you see a fast-moving storm system like this, whether it's a tropical system, it's going to bring some gusty winds. That pressure gradient is going to rapidly tighten across the region. So East Alabama, I certainly think we could have some wind gusts over 30 miles per hour. These are areas I highlighted. I think we'll see the greatest impacts from this. Just keep in mind, western part of the state, we really won't see maybe some rain, some breezy conditions. Possibly some of that heavier rain around Birmingham and into Shelby County. But there's some areas in here I have highlighted. We could end up with over 4 inches of rainfall, so flooding will be a concern. Local impacts as far as the wind gust, you can see over East Alabama, could have some gusts. Cherokee County, maybe nearing tropical storm force. So again, it's going to be breezy across the state, but East Alabama, especially Thursday night, make sure everything is well secure for those gusty winds that will move through. As far as the rainfall totals, new data showing up almost, look at that, 11 inches of rain in Atlanta. We see that kind of rain. That's going to be a big time problem with respect to flooding in those areas. And notice how that extends into Randolph County and Chambers County. So East Alabama, we could end up with some big time rainfall and some flooding issues there as well from this system. So Alabama impacts, again, over 4 inches of rain in parts of our area, mainly to the east. Wind gusts topping 35 miles per hour. It is First Alert weather days, mainly for East Alabama, coming up on Thursday and into early Friday. Live look from the Gulf Coast right now. Live look from Gulf Shores, 84 degrees. We have some views coming in right now. Panama City, that's a live look from Schooners there, showing 81. Seeing those clouds starting to move in there along the Gulf Coast, Tania. And I know you're going to tell us a little bit more about those impacts that we expect right where this is making landfall.
Yeah, absolutely, Wes. I think it's important for people to know what's happening down at the coast, especially along Florida's coast near the Big Bend area. Take a look at those active watches and warnings already in effect. And Helene isn't even a hurricane yet, so they're already getting prepared. We've seen many videos of them preparing and putting out their sandbags. But let's take a look at those warnings and watches in effect. So we have a hurricane warning in parts of Tallahassee, stretching all the way down to just north of Tampa. Hurricane watches in effect from Tampa's coast further down to Cape Coral. And notice tropical storm warnings in effect for Alabama's coast. Well, not quite Alabama's coast, but this is still Florida's coast right there, just right before we reach the little portion of Alabama's coast. And then we have tropical storm watches in effect for the East Coast near Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, and down towards Point St. Lucia. So giving you all that for first alert. This is not impacting us, but just wanting to let you know what's happening for Florida's coast as they're anticipating Category 3 like conditions from Hurricane Helene. Here's some more tropical storm threats. We've got winds exceeding 110 miles per hour for areas highlighted in purple there, and winds near Tallahassee around 74 to 100 mile per hour winds. Tropical threats continuing across the area where there could be some possible tornadoes all along Florida, extending up to Georgia and even the Carolinas, South Carolina in specific. Peak storm surges up to 12 feet in some of those main impact areas like Florida's Big Bend. So lots to really discuss here. Notice we zoom in, you get a better look here. Up to 12 there over towards Bayonet Point, 12 plus inches. But here's a look at that 7-day beach forecast. We're going to look at highs over the next several days in the 80s. The good news is the Gulf Coast should see a lot more sunshine as we head into Friday and the weekend. Overnight temps in the 70s. Again, the big days and the big time that we're anticipating landfall is tomorrow. But this comes as 61 out of 67 counties in Florida are currently under a state of emergency as Helene continues to strengthen. Excuse me. Capitol Bureau reporter Cody Butler from our sister station WCTV there it is at Florida State Emergency Operations Center with the latest on how the state is getting ready.
Governor Ron DeSantis is putting everything on the table, making sure every resource is available before Helene makes landfall. The president approving a pre-disaster declaration, unlocking even more resources from FEMA.
We just want to make sure that people are able to be safe.
Governor Ron DeSantis is encouraging everyone across the state to get ready for a major storm to make landfall this week. DeSantis expanded the state of emergency to include most of the state, leaving out the southeast counties as Helene develops in the Gulf.
This has a potential to be a really, really significant storm. So you have time to prepare, you have time to plan, you have time to take the action that you need.
That action could also be evacuations, which are already starting to be issued. Florida Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie is encouraging people to listen to local orders.
The one thing that I just gave a lot of thought, a lot of time and effort in is the evacuation order decision. The last thing you want to do is put people on the road when they don't need to be on the road.
Governor DeSantis says those evacuation orders would be because of the potential storm surge.
The wind you can hide from. Anything that's shelter in Florida is going to be able to withstand the wind. But it's the water that can be really, really devastating.
State leaders are reminding people if they do have to evacuate, they only have to go tens of miles instead of hundreds of miles. At the State Emergency Operations Center in Tallahassee, I'm Cody Butler reporting.
All right, everyone, it's time for weather every 6 minutes. Here's a look at that football forecast. 7 p.m. Friday, high school football sideline. Temperatures in the low 70s. Hopefully drier conditions, especially for West Alabama. We bring in your Saturday with only a few isolated showers possible. We're going to see Navy at UAB, 75 at 11 a.m. for that game. Number 21 Oklahoma at Auburn, low 80s. That kickoff starts at 2:30 on Saturday. And the big game Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Georgia taking on Alabama. 10% chance for a shower, hopefully dry conditions, and kickoff temps in the upper 70s. We'll have more forecast updates on that full 7-day in just a bit, but I actually want to send it over to Wes.
All right, Tania, it's going to be interesting for this one right here, and it's a term that has popped up throughout the week. Have you ever heard of the Fujiwhara effect? It's actually when two cyclones, a larger cyclone and a smaller cyclone, actually sort of orbit each other, and one gets ingested by the other. You see it a lot over the oceans. You see a lot of these cyclonic circulations. Well, it's actually going to happen over the southeast this week. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have more severe weather, but it is what's helping to pull the tropical system Helene to the north and west. So it's kind of interesting here. I want to show you this. We just don't see this all the time, but we've got this big trough that's digging in through Wednesday back to the west. This is actually what's turning, if you just kind of see how those arrows point, that's what's turning Helene back into the Big Bend region of Florida. Well, this cuts off into a big upper level low, a lot of cold air aloft. Well, as Helene moves to the north, it sort of orbits this and gradually gets ingested into this system. And this is actually what's going to move over this weekend and early next week. That's why we have that continuing chance for a few showers. It's going to be this trailing upper level disturbance. And once that gets out of here, we will trend much drier for it next week. So just looking at the explanation here, you can look at the forecast track and see how it starts to turn. But what it is just basically two systems in circulation. They do this little, I call it the big dance. They kind of orbit each other. It's a bipolar relationship there. They kind of circulate a common center. But if you ever hear that term in meteorology, that is Fujiwhara effect 101. Tania?
Well, as meteorologist Matt Daniel joins us now with a closer look at the type of flooding we could possibly see from Helene, as well as some safety tips on how you can stay safe.
Now that we have Helene out there in the northwestern Caribbean, we're always thinking about hurricanes. And I think a lot of people, when they think about hurricanes, they think the category. When they think about the category, it's all about the wind. But hurricanes have a lot of threats. It's not just the wind, it's the storm surge, it's the water. And did you know when it comes to fatalities, when it comes to tropical systems impacting lives, 37% of the time it's actually contributes because of heavy rainfall and inland flooding. So it's not just along the coast, but also farther inland, including parts of Florida and Georgia for this instance. So this is just a highlight of those tropical threats for flooding in red. That is major flooding from the Big Bend of Florida up through Macon, Georgia, through metro Atlanta, even as you go up into upstate South Carolina and the mountainous terrain. They could see a lot of lifting and lots of heavy rain from the system. Even here we could see a chance for some flooding, especially for East Alabama. Of course, that's why we had that first alert weather day for Thursday and a Friday. And these are just estimates. This could still change, but just in the next 3 days, look at that, 5 to 10 inches of rain easily across Georgia, including parts of East Alabama. Get a lot of rain in a short period of time, you're going to get some flooding. So we have to make sure you are safe and secure when it comes to that flooding threat, especially if you got plans to travel towards Georgia as we go into Thursday and Friday. You might want to wait with all that tropical rain and wind impacting Georgia. So we always tell people when it comes to flooding, if you're seeing a flooded road, just stop where you're at, turn around, and don't drown. Why is that? It doesn't take a lot of water to cause major issues. So if you get 6 inches of water standing, that's actually enough to actually sweep a person away. It'll knock you off your feet. But if it comes up to about a foot of water, it's enough to sweep a car away. You think a foot's not a lot, but if it's moving and you got a lot of rain in a short period of time, it can cause those issues. And then if you got 18 inches of water, or a foot and a half, it's enough to sweep away a smaller truck. So water can be very dangerous, very powerful, and the best way to avoid it is just never drive through it. And that's why we always state, turn around, don't drown. But when it comes to Helene, flooding and wind will be a big impact, especially East Alabama, and also, of course, as you go into Georgia, where we're thinking that center is going to be moving into the area. So just stay safe, and remember, once again, turn around, don't drown.
All right, still ahead, we're going to take a look at some of that 24-hour forecast data as these storms move through. And we're also going to be talking about some of those fall colors with meteorologist Cynthia Rodriguez. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
It's officially fall as of this weekend, and if you're like me, you love seeing the different fall colors as we head into the holiday season. Today, we are joined by Tim Roberts, who is a forester with the Alabama Forestry Commission, and he's going to talk with us about all things fall related. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today.
That's perfect. Well, I've already noticed some leaves trying to change color, especially when I'm driving down to 80, but when can we expect the peak in the fall colors here in Alabama?
So typically what we see with fall color is it's very dependent on three factors: what our minimum nighttime temperatures are, what our day length is, and what our moisture levels are. So when our minimum temperatures get into the high 50s, low 40s, and when our day length starts to decrease, our moisture starts to drop, we start to see a yellowing of leaves. Typically that occurs sometime around the first week of October. After we see that yellowing happen, we'll start to see more reds, purples come out in the following 2 weeks, usually a week to 2 weeks later. It starts in the north half of the state and starts to flow down. So typically, we'll see it about the 3rd or 4th week of October, sometimes even into that first week of November.
So we're very close to it. That
We're
makes
very
me
close.
very excited. And we had Francine and some of the rain getting here, but we're still in a drought. So how would that affect not only the timing of the changing the color, but also the brightness of the leaves? Like how the drought affects those colors?
So it's actually an interesting relationship. Drought sometimes, as it gets drier earlier, will cause the leaves to turn a little bit faster. But what we see is that same condition that turns them faster will also increase their color as they get ready to go into dormancy a little bit faster. They get those cues from the environment that it's time to go into dormancy.
That's very interesting. And what are those ideal weather conditions for the bright colors that we see during fall?
So the most ideal conditions we have for those really bright, vibrant colors that we love to see are more light-filled days, less gloom, less clouds, that dryness that we're talking about. And like we were talking about before, any temperature that's not quite freezing but below your 60-degree mark, typically right at around 50 degrees.
Well, that's great information, and I'm definitely excited to start driving around, drive north and see these beautiful colors. And I want to thank you, Tim, for being with us today. And we look forward to seeing more of these fall colors as we head deeper into the season.
All right, Shinty, and it won't be long. You can even notice out there, you're starting to see some of those colors. Had a lot of leaves on the driveway today, and after this week, certainly by Saturday, we'll need to clean up, do a little yard work out there because it's going to be breezy over the next couple of days, especially Thursday night. So checking out the radar at the moment, we have a cold front moving in. You can see watches and advisories going up back to our east in Georgia. We're seeing those flood watches popping up. This rain that we're seeing right now this evening's mostly across northwest areas from the cold front, but there could be some loud rumbles of thunder. But then late tonight, by midnight, after midnight, this front is going to move east. So we will see those impacts late tonight through the early morning. Central and eastern areas, you may hear some loud rumbles. So don't be surprised if you hear a rumble 2, 3 o'clock, wakes you up. Not expecting a major severe weather risk overnight, but could have some intense lightning, some gusty winds with some of those storms that do pop up. But the models show that chance for scattered storms here as we go through. There's 9 o'clock. We take it to 6 a.m. Some of these storms could be around early tomorrow morning. Check in with us early in the day and factor in some extra drive time there early on. As far as the midday to afternoon, we'll probably catch a few breaks, but we're still kind of wedged in between this front. Also, the tropical system approaching from the south. So a lot of lift here across the region. We'll probably see some off and on showers at times through tomorrow and into tomorrow evening. But notice as we make it into Thursday, well, the heaviest of the rain is going to set up shop across eastern Alabama. And here comes Helene. That system is going to pass by to the east. Notice around 11 o'clock Thursday morning, some very strong wind gusts out of the east direction. Could top 30, 35 miles per hour. Anniston, Ashland, Alexander City, Center, center areas, Jacksonville, back in towards Altoona and Gadsden, Rainbow City, all these areas very windy and a lot of rain. Could see over 4 inches in some areas. Notice Birmingham's right there on the edge of the heaviest of the rain. Now we'll probably see some showers on Wednesday, or Thursday I should say, but the more impacts, greater impacts obviously you can see in areas back to the east across the eastern part of Alabama with Helene. And after that we have improvements just in time for the weekend. So many of you have asked me about Saturday and game day. At this point, maybe a couple of showers, a high around 82 degrees, overnight lows in the 60s. Next week could get interesting around Wednesday and Thursday as far as temperatures go. We had some data, Tania and I were looking at it earlier, showed some upper 40s out there. So we'll, watch and see what happens here. We're getting into that time of the year where you can't have those kind of temperatures, but there is some drier air that comes into play towards the middle of next week. So we will keep you posted right here. Check in for updates as we continue to monitor Helene. But right now, check out this picture submitted by Karis Davis, and what a lovely fall photo, Karis. We certainly appreciate you sharing that with us here on Weather Extra, and have the pumpkins and all the fall colors as Shinty was talking about already. And everywhere you go right now, you see the pumpkins are out. So we're getting into that time of the year, and certainly a nice little fall photo as we are now in the first official week of the fall season. But hey, I want to see your photos. The weather team wants you to share those with us here on WBRC. We'll share those on the news and of course right here on Weather Extra. How can you get those to us? Well, if you go to WBRC.com, color the weather, we have all these different templates. You can just color those and send those in on the weather app. We'll see you after the break. We'll have new advisories coming in tonight as we track the tropical system. Tania, you'll see us at 9, right?
Yeah, we'll have updates for you guys then, plus on what else you can expect for the weekend. So have a good evening, but check back in tonight, first at 9. All right, let me get this 7-day up here. Alrighty, I am ready. You ready? In 3. That's fine. Okay, 3, 2. Hey there, everyone. First Alert meteorologist Tania Michelle here with a look at that 10-day forecast. First Alert weather days in effect Thursday and Friday. Rain chances are a little more elevated Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see rain for mainly the first half of your Friday, but seeing some breaks and drier conditions as we approach your Friday night. The weekend looks pretty decent, more isolated to widely scattered activities Sunday and the start of next week. We're going to see some cooler temperatures by the middle of next week as a front moves through, highs in the upper 70s and overnight temps as low as the 50s next week. But for the rest of this week, expect those overnight lows in the 60s. If you're looking for more forecast updates, don't hesitate to download the WBRC 6 News First Alert weather app.